and things like that. They had the
Basically, the monsters from the zombies from 28 Days Later.
pretty much like that. You
Yeah.
know it, and it was okay. But overall, if it wasn't for Mila, who does such a good job at portraying her character and trying to keep the fans entertained, I probably wouldn't have really paid attention to it because I'm just a big fan of Mila Djokovic. Here's a woman that I've always said should have played Black Widow. Could have played Elektra in my opinion. You know, she was perfect for those roles. You know, and for a former supermodel that just kicks ass, and loves to do the stunts and does everything. She plays her part well. Um, and that's pretty much what we got to say about the Resident Evil series. I mean,
I mean, and I'm looking forward to Resident Evil Damnation, the other CGI movie coming out.
uh huh.
It's gonna have again Leon S. Kennedy, which is great. And Hollywood needs to take a look at these movies and go, "This is how you do it," because what they're putting out is crap.
And speaking of that, there we go, right there. What V just said is true. We got some of these movies that Hollywood has tried to do and go CGI. The first one that comes to my mind right now is Final Fantasy Spirit Within.
Oh yeah.
Now, yeah, whole God is right. Uh, Beautiful special effects, beautiful everything, but not Final Fantasy. They just plugged that name on it just to sell the movie, and that movie took about I'm not even I know it was in the billions, millions to make that movie, but in the special effects at that time, those special effects were pretty much brand new, breathtaking, but it wasn't Final Fantasy. You know, it was like, why would you call it that? If it was called something else, I would
Spirits
have,
Within.
I
If
would
it
have,
was just
yeah,
called Spirits Within, I would have been a lot more forgiving.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
If it was called something like that, Spirit Within, okay, but Final Fantasy, the Spirit Within, no, okay. So we get years later. It's not even a Hollywood movie. It's more of a Japanese, but there's the Sony Japanese branch or so, Square Enix, and make the sequel to the Final Fantasy VII game, which is pretty much critically acclaimed. Everybody, that's pretty much where if I talk to anybody that says Final Fantasy, that's the game I got really into the Final Fantasy series seven. We get Final Fantasy Advent Children, and I watched this movie, and I'm just clapping. I'm just like, there you go. That's beautiful. That was great, you know. And I watched that, and here I am, an avid watcher of that movie. I will always watch that. If I feel like I'm in the mood to watch it, I'll go on my collection, pop it in, and watch it. And I still get a kick out of this movie every single time I watch it. The fight between Tifa and when that was beautifully done. The motorcycle scene when Cloud is pulling out all the swords from his motorcycle and fighting those demon dogs and those guys with the gun blades. I've always
Yeah.
said the gun blade is a great idea. Whoever came up with that idea, kudos to you, my friend, because that was so cool. You got a sword, but it's also a gun. So you can fight from close quarters or fight long range. That was beautiful. Now, for all those that don't know, the sword blade wasn't introduced until Final Fantasy VIII, but it was great to see them put that in this movie. I love this movie. It puts that spirit within to shame. Okay,
Hell yeah.
puts it to shame, very much to shame, and it's just great. It was great. So I started with V last time. I'm gonna start with T on this. What did you think of Advent Children, T? And would you want to see another Final Fantasy game made like that?
Absolutely. That's everything you just said. Exactly. I watched Spirits Within. I've only seen it once in my lifetime, and I don't plan to watch Spirits Within ever again. It the story was made no sense. It had none of the characters, no references to the movies. I mean, to the games, excuse me. But when we see Advent Children, a perfect sequel to the seventh game, probably arguably one of the best game. Now, this is just stating opinion, but in my opinion, probably one of the most memorable games in video game history. And you have characters that people know and love. You have Vince, Sephiroth, Cloud, Tifa, all of them, all in this movie, and it's done so well. It feels like you just watched one big thank you to the love letter to the fans. I mean,
All right, V.
Yeah, it was a total makeup for, like you said, it just made me happy. I mean, the motorcycle chase scene was just brilliantly done. They even had, crap, forgetting the dragon's name in here, but they had
Oh, but
Cloud.
Behemoth.
Yeah, and I was like, this is just fantastic. This is how you do a Final Fantasy or an overall video game movie. I would love to see more. I would love to see a movie based off the eighth game because I love seven.
Mm-hmm.
I love Cloud and Sephiroth. Don't get me wrong, and I know people love them as well. But I love eight. Eight was just really where I got into the franchise. I know a lot of people got into it through seven,
Mm-hmm.
but eight is really for me where it took off. So I would love to see a game. I mean, a movie done by the same studio, Square Enix, based off that. That would be great. So that's my overall thoughts on it.
I mean, that is one game, guys, that we can say right off the bat where they did it the right way, because it would have been so utterly disgusting to see that game turned into live action. You know,
Oh yeah,
it would have been
and
so disgusting. So to see them do it CGI, but almost looked like they took the features of actors, probably Japanese actors, or so, images of them, and choreographed that into the characters of, like, for example, Cloud looked really cool. He didn't really have his spike hair. It was spiked up at much, but it wasn't as spiky as in the game. Tifa looked more slim but physically fit to you, where you can actually see, okay, this girl will kick your ass if you gotten to piss her off. You know, Steve Bloom as Vincent Valentine was great. Steve
let me
Bloom,
just say, Steve Bloom, dude, you kick ass.
exactly.
Starscream, Shishio, Wolverine.
Steve Bloom
Dude is a god.
is a god, man. He made Vincent so cool. Gave Vincent that voice that made Vincent come off like, okay, we know why this guy's a badass. It was just a good movie. Now Hollywood needs to think about doing stuff like that, more often. But they still feel that if we do stuff, we still have to put our mitts into it. And a prime example of that is a classic anime character known as Astro Boy. They did a lot CGI movie of that.
Yeah.
Okay? And they took bits and pieces of what the anime is supposed to be about. Here's a robot android who wants friends and things like that, but they made comedy out of it. Oh, I got rockets coming on my butt and stuff like that. I don't want to hear that. I don't need that. They'll try the CGI, but then it comes off bad.
Yeah.
And but they really need to really go, because people will still pay to see these movies if not live action, because first of all, when it comes to animation, you don't see the actors are just there providing voice. It's the animators that do the real work, and that's who you really give the praise to. Look at the animators from Advent Children. It's great. Degeneration, great. With this Tekken movie, that looks great. Just that teaser trailer right there. By the way, it's on YouTube, guy. It was great. And T has something to say. Go ahead, T.
And speaking of, the animated movies, let's not forget that, like I said before in one of my videos a while ago, that, they're talking about an animated Mass Effect, and, well, Funimation's talking about dubbing a Dragon Age and Mass Effect games, the animated movies.
Okay. And it's animated or CGI?
They said animated, but that was about it.
Okay, now see, now I've heard that as well, and that's good and all. But then I'm also hearing live action as well. And now sometimes when we look at Mass Effect, now I'm a huge Mass Effect fan, guys, uh, and I watched, and I'm looking at, I'm like, man, this is pretty much Star Trek and all that put together, just with more badassness and not too much of the campiness to Star Trek. Okay, and I look at that, I'm like, you know, it may can go live action, but you would really need somebody who is familiar with quote unquote space operas, because that's pretty much what Star Trek and uh, it's space opera is another subgenre of sci-fi, and that's pretty much you need somebody like as much as you know George Lucas or Steven Spielberg behind that, or somebody like that that has a broad horizon of space and things like that. But most of the time, the best way to go is basically animation.
Yeah,
And
I mean, and Hollywood has proven that they have the money. I mean, Avatar, James Cameron, I like the special effects, but the movie itself was really lackluster. The story is Hollywood just doesn't care about story. They're willing to do effects and all that, but they don't give a crap about story these days. I mean, they pump out so many movies and none of them are memorable at all.
you know, when you also talk about CGI, look at with Hollywood. Look at something like Kung Fu Panda. I love Kung Fu Panda. I thought that was really good. The animation was really good, and they're
Yeah,
coming out with a sequel. But still, in the back of your mind, you're still saying, why a sequel really?
Yeah.
To me, I'm looking at that like, why a sequel? Okay,
yeah,
really, why are you doing this? And once again, money, money wise. There you go. It's the same thing with me about Shrek. Me, to my opinion, guys, and I might get shot for this or beat up, but look, to me, Shrek didn't need all them damn sequels. Okay,
nah, it
it
didn't.
it did not need all them sequels. And Shrek is not based off a video game or anything like that, but still, it did not need all them sequels. You know, and we talk about characters that we would want to see in movies, like we said, you know, Snake and Dante, and you know, I've heard somebody say one time, I would love to see Ryu Hayabusa do a game, and then I'm like, you know what? If they give the guys who did Ninja Assassin, I'll take that. I'll take that
Yeah,
because that movie was great, and that I when I watched Ninja Assassin, I saw Ninja Gaiden. I'm like, I see Ninja Gaiden in this movie. I see it. I see it. I can feel it. Now, if they do it that way, okay. But still, in the back of your mind, guys, you're still like, if they do it, you know, it's a, it's it's a 95 to 5%, and that 95% is it's gonna be crap compared to that little bit of 5%. You get where I'm coming from, you know,
yeah, exactly.
you know. So it does bother you, does bother me, and I know it bothers my two brothers right here. Of why Hollywood seems to suck when it comes to making these movies. When we said it before, they seem to get the comics down. Look at, Thor. We'll take Thor for example. Thor was great.
Yeah,
It was great. I backed this movie up. I was like, you know what? It's gonna be good. I care not, and I'm backing up Cap. I'm backing up the Lantern, and I'm damn sure. Wait, let me put it like this: I'm backing up Lantern more because this needs to succeed.
yeah,
Lantern needs to succeed. If it doesn't, then Warner Brothers is just giving us nothing but Clark and Bruce. And I
yeah,
kid you not, I don't care how much of a fan you are of these two heroes. Okay, Superman, yeah, he's the first superhero. Okay, yeah, he always gets that pass, and he gets that respect. Everybody, IGN did a top 100 superhero list, and he was number one. And I've said it before, I knew he was going to be number one just because he's the first. I get it. I get that. But if you keep constantly putting out movies of those two characters, no matter how much respect and love you got for these characters, you're going to get tired.